Hello, thanks for joining us today for the next webinar in our What's New series. In these webinars, we review and discuss challenges faced by those working in the energy sector, along with an insight into the technology that can be used to overcome some of these challenges. Today, we'll be focusing on maintaining secure operating sites with the goal of protecting vulnerable assets and maximising operational capacity. Don't feel like you need to take notes or take it all in straight away, as we'll be sending out a recording of the webinar later today. Also, if you have any questions, please do feel free to drop those into the Q&A box at any time, and there will also be time to cover some of those at the end of the webinar as well. I'll now hand you over to Michael Crabtree, one of our senior technical architects. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you very much, Jenny. So yes, today we're going to be looking at an overview of Bedroq Capture. This is just something we're looking with people at the moment as we start to introduce some of what we used to do as traditionally as projects and introduce these as managed services and what the benefits of that can be for our customers and clients. So we're going to be doing an overview of Bedroq Capture, what that is, some of the components that make it up, and how you can and how we can hopefully make that more understandable. I'm going to introduce to you guys Bedroq Seek, which is how we can do things like analytics and things on top. The benefits of procuring your security as a managed service, some use cases from some existing kind of systems that we're putting together for people, and a little bit about what's next. So for people that don't know, as I know we've got a few new people on here today, we manage mission critical IT and also OT as well, for highly regulated organisations, lots of CNI companies and things like that right across the UK. So let's get straight into what is Bedroq Capture. So the idea of Bedroq Capture is it's an all-encompassing solution. We take everything from design, implementation, and we support every aspect of that as well. It also includes some centrally managed security management. And the idea is to simplify the management, giving people like yourselves really a peace of mind, knowing that their systems are going to work 24/7 and protect your sites. So we break that down into really 4 sections. The first section is around consultation and planning. So that might be doing some site surveys, that'll be doing maybe some high level designs, either specific to a site or in terms of setting your requirements that maybe you can implement to multiple sites. Deployment and networking. So actually being able to implement those systems, configure them, install them, and any professional services around that. Looking at operational support and compliance, which is really important at the moment. So not only that 24/7 support and management, but also to those industry standards as well. People may be aware of ISO 27001, which is really around IT and IT security and IT methods, but also what we're seeing at the moment is the requirements for IEC 62443, ratified in 2021, should I say. It's something that's becoming much more prevalent. So if some of you are now seeing from other people in, say, your IT and OT security departments, in your cyber departments, things such as a lot more logging, a lot more reacting to events, a lot more understanding about your configuration of your systems and your auditing of those systems. A lot of that is coming out of there. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a few slides time. And then also things like secure data storage and interface management. So using our data center, we can centrally host secure services, integrations, all in one space that's secure. So let's have a look at some of the benefits. We've got some here to have a look at. So there's some decreased revenue risk. A lot of you have remote locations, you've got unmanned sites. If anything was to be stolen, not functioning, or that asset's offline, it could be not just how much it costs to get that back online, but also that lost generation and fines that can be incurred as well. I actually went to a site yesterday. It was really interesting in the fact that they had a break-in and somebody tried to break in and steal the earth cabling. The total amount they tried to steal was about £4,000 worth of copper earth cable. And what that actually amounted to was that the whole system tripped, the low voltage tripped as well, which meant all of the systems went down. it blew up 2 switches, which are industrial switches, which resulted in about £30,000 worth of new kit required, about £100,000 worth of damage, and approximately a million per day in lost revenue from the turbines not being able to deliver power. So despite the fact that people might say, well, it's quite costly potentially to put in an electronic security system, it's that investment, isn't it, in the fact that, you know, in this case, they were losing that amount of money. And in the end, the people got caught, and therefore they didn't get done for burglary, just got attempted burglary because they didn't actually get away with taking anything. And therefore, those costs are never going to get recouped back to that company, unfortunately. So CapEx, it allows for easy forecasting, because rather than having to set and look for big budgets to be able to come up with project costs, we can deliver that as a monthly fee that's ongoing, with no unexpected costs as you go through that. If new software comes out, for example, we can update it as part of that managed service. If new services come along, we can say, well, we've got these new services, have a look at the benefits, and if they're appropriate for you, we can implement them as part of that cost as well. Strategic planning. So we know that sometimes companies, again, some of them are built as part of an investment program and therefore are designed to be sold, and things like that. Well, we can either, if things are bought, we can bring things into scope easily. If things are sold, we can take those devices and take them out of scope easily. So it allows us to really be flexible in the way that we manage, look after, and the way that you are able to price for your sites. Improved health and safety. So we know keeping people safe is really the most important factor for places like this. Remote buildings make this potentially a little bit more difficult, but also more important. So real risk for lone workers. And also increased by the fact that operators may have a number of sites to look after. So it may be a case of, you know, these guys are looking after lots of different sites, and being able to see things happening can be more difficult. So with certain things that we implement, we've got the ability to make those things visible to them as well. Operational procedures. So we can help to create a set of standard policies and procedures that will be across your site or across multiple sites. And we're able to provide training on that to your operators, agreed with your operations managers, etc., etc. Response rates. So not only theft, which I've just talked about, but also fly tipping. They're also quite expensive, and obviously usually the site owners are the people who have to pay for that removing. Using this solution and using some of the things that we've packaged together with people and come up with, anyone who enters a site we can immediately see that, and we can immediately take action. Agile integrations. Again, we've got lots of ways and we can integrate lots of things. So we've got the ability, if somebody says, well, I've got this particular alarm system at my site, then we can look at that, and if we can integrate it, we can integrate it. Fire systems and other such things, we can integrate those if required, and basically make it suit your needs much better. And again, cybersecurity, as we said, adherence to these new standards as part of IEC 62443, and things like that. As we know, certain types of things can be quite expensive to do, and actually having that knowledge up front and be able to work with that means we can be much more effective and get that right for your first time. It would also fall on our shoulders to manage that, giving you guys the peace of mind you've got a safe, you've got a reliable and resilient system. So moving on to this. So this is really just to give you an idea of the types of kind of systems, services, technologies that we can implement. Not only cameras, which a lot of people will come to us and that's the first thing they think about, but also other elements that can make up site security. As you can see, you know, potentially we've got lots of different suppliers. We've got to manage all those different agreements, different times that, say, your management contracts and things all end, and then any updates that are required, different costs across all of those different boards. Separate project management, separate suppliers, as we said already, managing each one. Support can be complex because if there's a problem, it can potentially know which one is the problem, and we've all sure been across that, haven't we, where if something's not working, one company will say it's the network, don't they always? and then it's up to the network provider to prove that otherwise. So we can bring all that, make it a much simpler, more streamlined process for you, bringing all these different aspects that either are going to be putting as a new site or into an existing site, or you've got an existing equipment that you feel that you might like to integrate into a central system. Certainly a lot cleaner, a lot easier to manage, got all our different suppliers under one roof, under a single contract as well, that makes it easier to manage. All we do is we agree what's in scope, and in terms of the number of devices that are going to be managed and are going to be supported, and then obviously we take care of everything else. So let's have a look at the different service components that make up Capture. As we said, all-encompassing solution, said that already at the beginning, and we look after all these different aspects, and we break it down into these kind of 7 different levels, if you like. In terms of managed service, we've got first and foremost our video management system. Some people may have heard it called an SMS or a security management system, but it's essentially the same thing. So as part of that, it's on-site recording, or sometimes it's in our Bedroq data center. If you've only got a small site, sometimes being able to power and have a comms room with air conditioning for this type of equipment can be quite a challenge. So we can take that, put it in the data center where it's nice and safe. And we can also do management in the data center as well. So it's all included in terms of the recording, the management, and we just charge per device or camera. So that's all the support, the licensing, the software, the recording space, however big that needs to be to support that number of devices. And that's all in one. I'm going to step on to, some people do have internet via there as well. So if it's a monthly cost, people are used to paying a monthly cost for internet and things. So therefore we bundle all that into one as well. Not only does that secure internet and WAN include the internet, the most obvious thing, but also includes things like the security. So it includes that firewalling, it includes all of that cyber security that we overlay over the top. It includes that as well, which is really key. Then we move on to some more of the maybe traditional things people think of: support and management, either 8x5 24/7, planned preventative maintenance, so making yearly, 6 monthly, whatever visits that fits with your plans to make sure that everything is working as it should on site. Also a spare service that can go alongside that, which can help to accelerate SLAs, so that we can get a fix on site much quicker if required. All hosted if we needed to in our secure DC hosting, like we said. And then finally, the one that I've left till last, because that usually is delivered more as a device supply and installation. So the actual cameras, the speakers, whatever they are, the electronic security components, maybe gate control, whatever it is, then we supply that as device supply and installation. So that's more like you would traditionally have equipment as such. But we do manage it under Bedroq's capture service. So it's managed in the same way as the things that we maybe have a monthly fee for. So as we said, it's secure, but it's also flexible as well. So for those people that saw our webinar in June, if you haven't, then obviously give us a shout, speak to Jenny or speak to Dylan. We can send you a copy of that video. So we were able to integrate into all sorts of systems, either as part of a solution or part of what you've got already, such as IDS, any gate security, access control, visitor management, key asset control, and also alerting from other systems such as HVAC and fire panels. We can take information from those as well and display them or alert if they go off, and you can do something about that. So introducing another service, Bedroq Seek. So this originally was developed for other areas of our business, but over time we found it become more relevant to the energy sector as well, as operations room staff are monitoring more sites, and usually, one of their primary things is usually to monitor either SCADA or monitoring boats going to or from wind farms, actually monitoring the generation of the energy itself. They're doing lots of those types of things, and therefore, site security actually could be about 3rd or 4th down the list, and that's for multiple sites at once. So what Bedroq Seek can do is provide analytics that allow pertinent things to be made available and really obvious to the operators. So for example, using analytics on fence line protection. So somebody jumps over a fence, all of your cameras can be set up for analytics. If that sees that that's a person, then that can let the operators know when they can take action. If it were a fox or a rabbit or anything like that, it would know it was that, and it wouldn't alert if it was something like that. So saves time and makes sure that the operators are dealing with the things that they really need to be dealing with. And that can be delivered as either as part of Bedroq Capture, or for some of the more extensive work, then as part of Bedroq Seek in our data center. That allows us to process lots and lots of footage and view hundreds of hours in minutes and all that type of thing. So in terms of the service components for this, live analytics, probably the most prevalent for you guys, perimeter protection, being alerted to people, but also if you have got visitors, they can, if they've got an intercom, press the button, just alerts, let people know. So live analytics are really key and something that we're doing a lot of at the moment, but also a little bit of post-process analytics as well. Being able to review that quickly. If there was an incident, being able to do some key searches that would allow you to find any issues or problems on site quickly and effectively. And then there's some other things as well, such as facial recognition. For some people, they're starting to think about that potentially as part of access control. But yeah, we can certainly deliver things like that as well. Again, either on site as part of a small deployment, or in terms of bigger deployments as part of our secure hosting as well. So for those people who didn't attend our webinar in June, some of the things in terms of those analytics, often in a live environment, as we said here, things like perimeter protection, objects leaving and entering areas, loitering, so people or whatever in a certain area for a period of time. So for example, if you've got a wind farm or a solar farm in the middle of a field, if you've just got if people are parking up and say, parking up just outside it and wouldn't be able to normally for a period of time, you can get alerted to things like that. If you've got one-way systems, we can alert on those as well. So for health and safety and things like that. So there's lots of things that we can do to give people visibility of what's going on their sites. And something we're currently working on, which is relatively new, we're just working on this at the moment and looking at delivering it, is to be able to protect complex boundaries. And for this, it's really things like solar, where you wouldn't necessarily have a 2.8 meter palisade fence all around the thing with controlled areas. Using and things like traditional fence line may be not as capable for doing this, and therefore using things such as radar systems, which traditionally would have been extremely expensive, are now coming into play, and we can, much more cost effective, capable kit that allows you to protect your boundaries where traditional fence line really would have problems. And you can see here there's two different types I've got pictured on this slide. One of them is a basic radar system, that's the one on the right, and we can have a map and it'll show us where it's seeing people. And the one on the left is paired up with a camera, so we've got some visibility, separate visibility as well. So yeah, that's a really fantastic tool that we're looking at implementing at the moment. So key differences: proactiveness, that proactive approach in terms of system management, service providers traditionally. So this is kind of something that's come from the traditional IT world, and that's why we're really quite excited about delivering this to this sector. Is that that monitoring, that maintenance of customer infrastructure all the time, using proactive monitoring. And also of events as well, and looking at those and reacting to them with proper realistic service level agreements as well. So if anyone's used to those from things like, if you've got a lease line and that reaction time to a lease line breaking and things like that, bringing that into all of your security as well, with specific targets, response times and other such things, so you get a consistent service level. Again, that monitoring and maintenance, so issues can be addressed promptly, or in some cases, bear in mind that this is CNI, sometimes it'll be a case we can identify it promptly, and then we can have a look at creating an emergency change if we need to make some updates, and we can do that along with you guys. And then at the bottom of that, more predictable pricing. So traditionally, it'd be looking at trying to find a big amount of funds to fix things, to get a new system in. And then over time, obviously we have that system and it ages. And then 5 years down the line, another big chunk of money that is required to either create upgrades or do refreshing of servers and those types of things. We're able to make that more predictable and have that across. And in 5 years' time, well, we don't need to be paying out for new equipment and for refreshed equipment and servers and things. So for us, key things: managed, rapidly deployable, commercially flexible. We can move things around. We can add and remove things as we need to. In terms of a monthly fee, I know some people, if we can figure that out how people want. If they want it to be more of just a big block once a year, we can do that. And key is that software and equipment included, really key. It just means that certain things that will be difficult, for example, you want a new camera in a position and you're like, oh, I want to put this new camera in, and suddenly you start getting into the techie of it. Oh, well, you need a camera and you need a license. We need to upgrade the server with more hard drives. We're talking a lot of tech there. If we just said, well, it's this much to add that camera in that position, it's managed, it's supported, we're making sure the recording, enough capacity, the licensing and everything around it is also there. And it's just bundled up into a single cost that makes that simple to understand, manage, and for you guys to purchase. Hosted, so again, flexible in the fact that we can maybe have recording on site, off site, hybrid of the two, depending on your sites and the sizes. There's lots of flexibility in there. And in terms of backup as well, having that as hosted, and even with your on-prem, we've already got backup solutions in place. We don't have to design that. That's already there and already available. And important, Bedroq supported. So support, monitoring, management, even of equipment that we put in, such as the cameras and things that obviously are purchased as a one-off. So let's have a look at how we're kind of helping some people out. So this is an example. This is a kind of a design or a blueprint that I came up with quite a long time ago. So in electronic security, it's about that creation of package of systems. So different sites have different requirements. So it's those building blocks of different technologies, depending on the site requirements that you have. Important that it's all centrally managed and controlled. Really important that it's centrally monitored and supported. But yeah, you can see on here, as you can see, cameras again, actually quite a small component. We can integrate intercoms, access control, visitor management, key control, speakers, so intercoms and tannoys and PAs. So when people hoof the fence, you get an alert, and then you can shout down the microphone to people. Lots of other integrations as well with fence line protection, gate control, access control, connections into fire. And we can see all these components. And then if people have got some novel technologies such as automated drones, we did get asked about that, then we can look at how we integrate not just the fact that it's had to take off and do its thing, but also the video coming from it as well. So there's lots of novel technologies where people have asked us to get involved as well. But on top of that, monitoring the background, so we've got that UPS with environmental monitoring. So we've got all those components, and depending on your site, you might have all those things. You might go, actually, it's only a small site, a battery site. We only need a basic bit of gate control, maybe some cameras and access control with perimeter protection. So that can be scaled depending on how big your sites are, how complex they are, geographically where they're located. Are they located in a town, a city? Are they completely in the middle of nowhere? And in terms of our managed service components, with this one, we've got our VMS, we've got the device supply and installation. In terms of this, again, security, internet, and WAN, which includes that internet connection, that firewall and the firewall security, and all of those subscriptions again. So we've not got what traditionally might be where you're paying your support contract, but then you're paying for security updates, and maybe they're not all in sync for all your different sites. So it really simplifies all that. Support and management, that PPM visits once a year, once every 6 months. And again, spare services for those people that maybe want their SLAs to be quicker, because we may come on site, find a problem with something, and then have time wasted where we have to send that equipment off to the manufacturer, whereas having a spare, we could replace it there and then. So in terms of the managed service components we looked at earlier, as you can see, this is kind of an example where we pretty much can use all of those. In terms of IT and OT delivery, again, design implement, manage and support both IT and OT secure networks. We've been delivering kind of traditional IT networks for quite a long time in this managed service format, so it can make complete sense to do the same thing for an OT network as well to a certain degree. Implementing those standards, especially the IEC 62443 standards, that, as we say, that are going to become more prevalent. It's pretty obvious from what we're seeing and what when people are talking to us about new sites and new systems, that's starting to come from their cyber people now. So that's something that's prevalent. So again, device supply and installation, using that secure internet and WAN for your firewall, DMZ, whatever you want to call it. And for certain people at the moment as well, a lot of the time, because you need to have your remote access really secure and understand who's coming in of your contractors and your own staff. A lot of people will be used to coming into their system, say using a jump server. We've got the ability to host those types of jump servers and have their fully audited, controlled, all of that good stuff to make sure that we know who's coming in and when, and we can report on that. So for some people at the moment, we're starting to look at actually having those jump servers in our cloud environment, so that they can get to that jump server and actually get themselves to the different sites that their contractors or their own workers need to get to. Supported and managed again, and in some cases it's spares management as well. Certainly in terms of this, the installation side of it is quite big sometimes, fiber optic, copper, whatever it is, not just delivery of industrial and those types of switches. So yeah, we've got consultants who do work with us. So if 62443 was something that you guys have got a requirement for, and therefore you need to start looking at cyber risk assessments, maybe even statements of applicability for some of your systems that fulfill those requirements, then we do have consultants who we work with on that, as well as third-party pen testers as well. Although we have some clients who do actually do that themselves, which is great. We're perfectly happy with that. Certainly from that point of view of not marking your own homework, so to speak. We're really passionate about that. It'd be no good for a company to do their own risk assessment or do their own part of pen testing and say, yeah, everything's fine. If people want to do their own, we have third parties who do it to make sure that we're being held accountable. So yeah, really important on our point of view. So if anyone does have any questions, then feel free to ask them.
Great, thanks, Mick. Yeah, like Mick said, if you've got any questions you'd like to drop into the box, please do feel free to do that now. Something, Mick, that does come up quite regularly when we're talking to people about this kind of thing is it's very rare that you can start with a clean slate and sort of design your whole site from scratch, especially if you're dealing with multiple sites. So is it possible to kind of use this management service to take on all different kinds of technology? Perhaps you've got one set of cameras at one site, one different access control at a different site. How can we help people with that headache when they're dealing with all of those different technologies? Yeah,
certainly. So that usually comes from that first assessment, really, which over with our experience, there's probably a number of systems that, if somebody came to us and go, actually I've got this Galaxy alarm system, there's certain systems that pop into it and we're yeah, we know that system, we know how it works. As long as we can get into it, then we can integrate into it. For systems that we're less au fait with, then looking through our, there's lots of integrations. So, and again, using the video management system we use, we can literally have thousands of different types of cameras or things like that, or equipment. So 99% of the time, if someone's got a system and they're saying, well, actually, and again, heat vision's a big example, isn't it? People have been told not to use it anymore. If they really can't remove that system, then maybe we can do something to help protect that. Maybe that's removing the recorder and putting in something that's safe, secure and compliant, and locking down those cameras so they can't do anything else. And that may be an interim solution that still gives them visibility, helps border up their compliance while they swap those cameras out. So yeah, there's lots of things we can do there.
Yeah, I just think it's worth sort of mentioning we're not tied in with one particular technology or provider.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. There's lots of different types of all sorts of security elements, isn't it? Whether that's access control, fence line protection, different types of cameras, whatever that is. We're aware of lots of different types, and we're, our engineers either work with or are are actually certified in quite a number of different technologies, which makes it helpful.
Great. Okay. If there are any other questions that people want to ask, perhaps after watching the recording, please do just feel free to reply to the email that will be contain the recording, and we'll make sure that someone can get back to you, either Mick or one of our other technical experts. Thank you very much for joining us today, everyone. If you would like to join us again for the next webinar in this series that will take place next year, in 2024, we're not going back in time to 2023. I've just seen on the screen there.
Oops, my bad.
And it is the leap year as well. So join us again on the 29th of February if you would like to carry on with this series. We're going to drop the link into the chat box now for you to just straight away fill in your information on that form and register to attend that next webinar on the 29th of February. So once again,
fantastic.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for everything today, and thank you everyone for joining us. And like I say, if you've got any further questions, please do feel free to contact us, and we'll be happy to help you.
Yeah,
thanks
definitely.
very
I think
much,
as well,
everyone.
If anyone's got any topics, we're always up for that as well. So if people say, oh, you know, really good if you could do a webinar on this, then yeah, reach out to us, let us know. We're always taking that in. It is more of a community. So if people feed into us, then we're quite happy to do something and feed it back to you.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks a lot, Michael, and thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.